Hello and welcome. Today's project is going to be this 1993 Bass Tracker boat paired with a 2010 Evener D-Tech. I think it's a 2010. I didn't actually look because it doesn't really matter, but it looks like a 2010. The boat has its original concealed side mount controller right there, and I guess the guy that owns this boat is having problems with it, mainly the trim switch not working and it not always shifting, and the key being a little funky. So he wants a new controller installed, which he already bought, which is right down there. Now, a few videos ago I mentioned I wanted to get a Weaver controller to see if they're any good, see how they work, see if there's any issues, that kind of stuff. But I don't need to do that anymore because the guy that owns this boat already bought the controller. And he bought one of the Weaver side mount controllers, which is the clone of the original BRP controller that this motor should have been paired with. So, since it's not mine, I can't rip it apart and do a side-by-side comparison. But we at least hook it up, see if it works. We have our lanyard, we have our mounting hardware, we have a plug body, we have the terminal position assurance little clip, warning horn, pretty much it looks like everything we're going to need. So that's good. He bought a fuse box as well because he thinks the one in here doesn't work. I don't know how he wants it in. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if that happens. But we're here to install that controller, remove the concealed side mount, and put in our Weaver side mount controller. Yeah, I don't need to read all that. All right, let's take the old boat apart here. This handle is pretty loose already. We also have the overman dead switch, whatever you want to call it, down there. Doesn't feel like it actually works. So to get the handle off, I need to push the button and shift it in reverse all the way to get to the Allen key, but the button to press isn't actually working. And you feel it still shifting. I went over there and spun the propeller until I found where the gears mesh, so I can still shift it, but it won't shift without the throttle. So yeah, the controller's screwed up. So we will take it apart, take the pins out of the controller, eliminating the cables, then get the handle apart and save this thing. I could pop them out of the motor, but I don't feel like doing all that. So I'm going to take all the screws out, most of which are already gone. Alright, that allows me to get to the cables, which means I can pull these pins out. Okay, cables are out, which means the reverse limiter shouldn't be an issue. And we should be able to figure out what size Allen wrench we need. It's definitely not that one. Alright, that's off. Kinda. Still got the wiring. We have a switch in front of the boat, which would be where this runs to. We have the wiring going to the motor, which is the back, and then we have the switch wiring here that goes over there. He was saying how the switch wasn't working at all in both the front or the back. I told him the relay in the motor could be what's wrong. He insisted that was not the case. We'll address all that in a little while. Now it could be, the power wire here has a bad connection into there, so it's, not sharing the power. I don't know the case. We'll see if we can't figure it out. But he was insistent that he just wants the new controller put in, and this one's a piece of junk, which I don't think he's wrong about. Now you can see the plethora of hose clamps holding this hose on. I mean, I guess it works. I would just replace the cables. Well, I'm under here studying what they did for the electronics. It looks like it is actually an E-Tech harness. The warning horn looks hooked up. The system check gauge looks like it's hooked up properly. The only thing I'm noticing is they bypassed the yellow and red, which is the neutral safety switch. They just bypassed that like so, which, I mean, it works. And then since, well, it kind of looks like they took the switch out of a controller, or maybe they bought the harness separately, I don't know. But that looks like it's just the switch out of a side mount controller hooked up into their dash. I mean, you can tell by the hose clamp there, some rigging was done. The customer said he doesn't care if he uses a controller to start it or if he uses the wiring inside of here. It doesn't... I don't see a reason to disconnect this, to be honest. Because, I mean, it's working. We also have some of the original wiring, like here would be the wiring for the tack harness that was probably once part of the boat, and it's probably just still left in here. The same with over here, we have some yellow and red wires onto a little roller limit switch. That would have been the original neutral safety switch, which, I mean, isn't doing anything anymore. So the only thing I really need to verify is if the stop switch is hooked up into this somehow, which I really doubt. Okay, so the customer wants the fuse box switched out because he doesn't like these glass fuses. Can't just stroll down to the hardware store and get them anymore. I was a little skeptical at first, but this looks like the easiest fuse box swap you'll ever do. So I'll swap that out for him. I took the back of the controller off to get the cables installed. I don't see anything really wrong with this controller. It seems fine. It seems like a normal controller. The key, which I was hoping this wouldn't be the case, but the key kind of rotates, just like my factory controller. I wish they addressed that issue, you know, made it better when they copied it instead of just exactly. Wiring, the factory bullet connectors that fit into the switch are a little bit better than what's in here, but this is perfectly adequate. Like I said, if it were mine, I would take the whole thing apart. It's not, so this is basically all we get to see about it. I will probably wind up buying one for myself, but until that happens, this is what we got. Alright, made myself up a little adapter to go to his original wiring so I can easily just plug in the trim switch. Just need to make sure I get the wiring correct. You can already tell this may be a pretty boring video since the view is so much different from mine. But I'm taping up the original stop switch wires. I want to find out those are actually doing something. They wind up touching and then thus wind up not working. So. Put the beauty trim panel back on here. Make sure our controller is going to fit okay. And what I'm worried about is when the seat comes up, it clears the handle, which it just barely does. It should be okay. the reason I'm concerned is you're supposed to put these spacers on the controller. We should be all right though, because we have about an inch. We have half-inch spacers, so we should be fine. Check. Okay, with the first hole mounted, I'm going to run the switch wiring inside of our plate. I'm going to tuck and conceal this wiring through here as well. It'll look just like that. You will never see the wires, so nothing hanging to grab. So let's get our first mount. Okay. Bolt goes in through here, followed by one of the spacers. So go into our newly drilled hole. After our newly drilled hole, get a fender washer and a nut. Go ahead and tighten that down a little bit more. Get my speed driver here. I never like doing these because these bolts are just so long. And I'm pretty sure this is a 10mm nut too. I'll verify that in a second. Sure feels like it. So I suppose this is the first thing I've seen, second thing I've seen on this controller I don't like. Because every nut and bolt and screw, everything you come across on these Ebener Johnsons, at least the older ones I work on, and the newer ones, they're all American standard bolt sizes. This is the first time that I've used a 10mm. It's something that's supposed to be like that. Now, I know people have jammed 10mm bolts into a 3/8 inch hole prior. That's nothing new. But it's just, I don't know. I don't know if I like it. You know what I mean? For the last hole. It's a little hard for you to see, I know, because I need to get in here too. I need to swap out his bad cables for these good ones. The lower cowling on this motor is just falling apart too. Like, it's all taped up and cracked. Kinda sucks. If I had any spares, I'd give them to him, but I haven't worked on an engine like this in a long time. I mean, they're fine when they run. It's when you need an injector or a cylinder rebuilt. That's when your 1980 90 horsepower is looking a lot better. Well, anyway, you can't see what I'm doing anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and swap out these cables. Never really trusted these Chinesium fuse blocks, but it's actually pretty neat. Well, not neat, but simple. You have your ground here, which is a problem with what he's got in his boat because he's got spade terminals. This one's ring terminals. Probably gonna have to go under there and, install a bunch of ring terminals, which sucks, but what are you gonna do? However, the negative, that is a ring terminal, so there's no problem. Positive is a ring terminal, so no problem there. Anyway, so you give it positive wire, and then you just, each one of these now fused spots, give me 12 volts. It's pretty neat, and no interference over the negative, which is what I checked first. So I hook up a main ground, which he doesn't have, but he has all these other grounds, and they all work. They're all connected together, so pretty straightforward. I told him I didn't want to do this. I didn't know what kind of wiring he had in there, but it looks pretty straightforward, so I'll dig in. Don't like working in tight, cramped crevices, but such is life, I guess. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Put the cover on and that part's done. All right. Best I can tell, the problem he's having with his power trim and tilt is this switch. This stupid thing rocks sideways for whatever reason, and it also sticks up where it shouldn't. I think it wasn't working because the engine was already tilted up and the limit switch turned the motor off, preventing him from hearing it run. And whenever it hit down, since the relays were seeing, two positives, just wasn't doing anything. So I think it's just this switch that needs to get changed, and he'll be on his way. Pretty straightforward, and I have one. All right, new switch is in my hand. Should have brought pliers before climbing on this boat, but here we are. All right, let's hook the battery up, make sure everything works, and give them a call and get paid. All right, boat's gone. So I got the bank out. 150 bucks. So, local buddy Doug has convinced me to start accepting paying customers, and that was the first payment I've received. So how did it go? Well, I don't know, not bad for him. Cables, when I got those cables, I got a whole bunch of cables, let me tell you. They were like 20 bucks each, 23 bucks. They were cheap enough just to have a couple of each size on hand should I need them for something. And I went to a boat auction, a closing boat auction, and I bought more cables. So I have cables galore. Realistically, those cables meant nothing to me. I would have, if I met him anywhere else, he could have had them. But I gave him 2 cables. Those cables these days are what, $50 to $80 for a cable. So right off the bat, 150, 180 in cables he got. That switch, granted, when I bought it, it was like $3 or $4. Now they're like, 20 something to 30 something. So he got a good deal on the switch. I think if he went to a boat shop, they probably would have charged him, figure $200 in materials and probably 3 hours of labor, and anywhere between $100 and $200 an hour for labor. So he'd be lucky to get out of a boat shop for, I don't know, $550, $650, but realistically they probably would have charged him more like $800 to do that simple little job. Cost me about 3 hours. I thought it was good. I figured I could get that controller in an hour. What I didn't factor in was the looking at it time, the chatting time with him, and that kind of stuff. So all in 3 hours. $150 for 3 hours of your time isn't too bad. But if you start factoring in parts, it is. I got hosed. But I kind of didn't because I had no interest in that stuff anyway. You know what I mean? So I think going forward, I'm going to need to better estimate my prices here. I don't know. We'll see where this endeavor goes. But as I was telling my I don't know. I guess you could call him family friend, but it's not that they're my family's friend. It's that I'm a friend of their family. Anyway, riverfront property where I always go. It's the family that owns that riverfront. I saw him a few days ago, and I told him I was going to start taking paying customers. And the goal was to make $1,000 a day, and in 2 to 3 years, I could afford to buy myself some riverfront property. Good luck on that one, getting $1,000 a day, but may not be that out of reach. We'll see how it goes. Anywho, I have a 35 horsepower outboard that got delivered over the weekend, so that's the next job, and that's a new set of problems. So join me for that one. Now there's a couple of shop upgrades I need to make. One is to get this Evinrude test tank front and center so I could actually start using it again. get my kids' chalk writing off the side of it. Anyway, get it over to the other side of the garage near the workbench so I could easily use it again instead of buried over here in the corner. This is a Vevor press. I probably don't need one. Most of the time I use the arbor press, and 99% of the jobs I do with the arbor press. But an actual press is kind of handy to have. Since my buddy Jack passed away, I can't just walk over to his house and use his press anymore. So, needed to get a press. When I got the press, I also got a little vise, and I need to stay off the Vevor website because I also bought an automatic ram to replace the one that's here, because pumping these things just takes too long. So I think the next video is just going to be a filler video, as I like to call them, where I put these things together and just get more set up. I need to build a road to go to the back of my property so people can use the nice county maintained paved road in the backyard to be able to get to the garage here. That way they don't have to go down the bumpy private road. So I got to build a road. It's looking to cost $600-700 and some asphalt base. Not the end of the world, but I think I don't know. I might hold off on that until I get the money from actual customers to pay for it instead of just paying for it myself. Use the money I make to pay for the upgrades. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Started cleaning off the clutter on these shelves, or the catch-all. As I have my projects, the project stuff gets thrown over here and just kind of becomes a catch-all. The clutterment is kind of an embarrassment in the background of my videos, so I want to get rid of the clutter. I want to get it nice and clean and organized. So I got the totes. I just got to get rid of the little stuff, and then pretty much everything over here. Most of it's listed for sale, like my diesel motor. I don't really need that. It's just sitting there costing me precious garage space, so that can go. Propane tanks, I don't really have a barbecue anymore, so those can go. But I do have my metal melter here, which I like, and then my beach umbrellas and stuff. She likes the kid's car seat, so I don't know where any of this is going, but basically I want to get this side of the garage cleaned up so when people drop things off, it's not so cluttery, and in the background of my videos, it'll look that much better. Which also means this catch-all of parts needs to go. Now, these are instruction manuals, hose, vintage breaker points that you can't buy anymore. These pliers are actually quite handy, but they're kind of dumb at the same time. A bunch of gaskets inside here. This is all good stuff, as bad as it looks. So yeah, I'll be cleaning that up as time goes on. But anyway, this was my... I've gotten paid for jobs before, but not on the scope that I plan on doing them going forward. Until I get my riverfront, and then it's back to retirement for me.